Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for registering for today's webinar all about generating more direct bedroom bookings through smart PR. Welcome and thank you Lloyd Hughes and the team at Pic PR for helping us pull this session together. At one stage, this webinar was planned for a different date with a different speaker. David Barrett was due to be speaking, so accept our apologies for that, but I know that Lloyd will be fabulous. So thanks for your patience, and in a minute we'll get on with it. My name is Jane Pendlebury. I'm the CEO of HOSPA, the Hospitality Professionals Association. It's 2 p.m. It's Tuesday, the 28th of January, and it's pretty wet and windy across the whole of the UK, from what I can tell. We're due to be chatting for around 40 minutes today with time for questions at the end. So please do ask your questions throughout using the Q&A option at the bottom of the screen. And if there's not enough time to answer all the queries, we will get back to you afterwards. But I'm just going to hand over to Lloyd, who's going to tell us all about PR, and I'm going to sit here taking notes.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks for that. I'll quickly share my screen. Yeah, I hope I don't disappoint David's online fan base, but here you are, you've got me today. So the topic of the webinar then is how smart PR can drive more direct bookings. So I'll do a little introduction about Pic PR and what we do and our background in the industry, a little overview about PR and what it means really, and effectively the things you can jump on, as well as some specific examples of creative tactics that we've used over the years and put it into practice. So yeah, first things first, so I'm Lloyd, so I'm brand director at Pic PR, and within that role, so my background is very much PR as well as sort of creative copywriting. And within my role in the agency, I kind of oversee the creative output where we look at tactics and campaigns, and that's very much my baby. So I'm just going to sort of talk through some of those. Right. So just a little bit about Pic PR then. So we're 13 years old as an agency. We do specialize in hospitality. We're a generalist agency, so we do have clients elsewhere, but we've got a large sort of grounding in hospitality as well as care, actually, which I'll touch on later on. But yeah, generalist, but a big focus on hospitality. We're a team of 30. In the last sort of 4 years, we've been shortlisted or won more than 50 plus awards. So I'd like to see that's an example of that. We know what we're talking about. And then our services then, so we are predominantly PR, so that's press relations, digital PR, crisis comms, and everything around that. That was what we were founded as, and that's our sort of bread and butter. But there's other services that have been built over the years, and influencer marketing, obviously, as that's come into play. Video and photography is a huge part of our offering because you want those visuals to go with everything that we do. SEO elevation, so getting you found in search, our services come together to help you get found in the search rankings, content creation, and idea generation. And again, I'll explain more on that as we go. And here's a snapshot of our hospitality clients who we've worked with over the years, just to give you an idea of our background and some of the things we've done, some quite nice brands within that. So first things first then, I'd look at sort of what's PR and where does it fit within the marketing mix. So if you're looking at the paid, earned, shared, owned model, most elements of marketing you have some sort of control over. So paid, for example, you're paying for adverts to appear where you want them to. You can pay for social posts, again, on shared channels, you're sharing things, and owned channels, your website, so and newsletters and so on. So you do have an element of control over that. But where PR differs from the rest is that it's earned. So you can't just put something out there and it will appear. You have to earn that right effectively. So our ethos is always earn thinking first as a PR agency. And you look at journalists are effectively the gate guards of your audience. So you need to convince them to get past them. So they're arbiters. You can put something in front of them and it's up to them whether they want to run it. And if they don't want to run it, then it's not going to appear. So you need to make sure you've thought about it and you've put a journalist hat on to get you beyond that point. And fundamentally, they need a reason to write about you. So you've got to give something to benefit their readership. If you're a journalist, you're thinking, what's in this for my audience? What can they take away from it that's going to be of interest? So we always need to think that we're putting ourselves in journalist shoes and they're effectively putting themselves in their readership shoes. But the main point is, so it's the new, if you're getting in the news, the clue is in the name. For the news, it needs to be new. So you need a news hook. It needs to be newsworthy. So what makes a news hook? So I've got some examples here. So if you're a hotel, you will have natural news happening, whether it's refurbishments, appointments, it could be new GMs and so on. That's natural news that you can put out to relevant press and get coverage that way. Events, so if there's things happening at your hotel, this is normally sort of the bigger things rather than I mean, events happen all the time in hospitality, so it would need to be a bit more newsworthy than a bog standard offering, but there can be things of interest for press within that. And of course, major events and awareness day, so example, you're doing something around Valentine's Day coming up, that can be of interest to press and journalists because they're actively looking for stories relating to Valentine's Day. So if you've got something happening, that could be enough. And then press days and restaurant reviews, you want to invite press along to experience your offering and cover that. And then the last one I've got here is creative tactics. So that's where you're effectively fashioning the news hook, where you're producing it yourself. You're thinking of something different to help you make you stand out that would be of interest to a journalist. So I've got that different strokes for different folks. So you need to mix up your news hook depending on the media and indeed the audience you're targeting. So if you're going after national press, your news hook needs to be a lot stronger than it would be for regional, local and trade. So you need to have a real think about that and angle it accordingly. And again, depending who you're targeting within that. It's just a breakdown of options there. So national is your broadsheets, the Telegraph and the Times, and also tabloid, Daily Mail, and Daily and so on, broadcast, ITV, BBC, Sky News, radio, podcast, magazines, whether it's high-end, Harper's Bazaar, Condé Nast, Vogue, those kind of things, and then also Hello Magazine and right down to sort of Chat Magazine. These all have a national reach. So somebody in the UK, wherever they're based, could potentially read these and see these. Then the next tier down would be, excuse me, sorry, would be regional press. So this is kind of at a slightly higher level than your local, which is, so say we're in Gloucestershire. So Gloucestershire Live is our regional publication. It's the same Cornwall Live, Devon Live, and so on. There's broader pieces right down to the next tier, which is local. So that is, say, for example, the Bristol Post covers the whole of Bristol, but within Bristol, there'll be smaller segments within the city that have their own newspaper publications, but that's also local business mags, right down to parish newsletters. They can have value in their own way. And then finally, trade, obviously in hospitality, it's the caterer, boutique hotelier, and key things. So that's probably more for you if you wanted to get in front of other people in the industry, whether it's for recruitment purposes and so on. But each time you're approaching these different tiers, you need to adapt your news hook. Local might be interested in a much more small scale thing than national. National, it needs to have that bigger impact. And again, your audiences within that differ. So I touched on sort of the likes of Vogue and Condé Nast are going to be wanting a much more high-end offering than Chat Magazine. So you need to factor that in. If you're looking to get to a certain section of society, then angle that. And I will take the opportunity, actually, just we're dealing with hotels and hospitality, that don't neglect red top newspapers. We see that a lot when you're dealing with hotel marketers, and I think it predominantly stems from owners. They don't want to appear in certain magazines. They might see a tabloid as somehow sort of weakening the brand or and they just don't want to be associated with it. But the fact is, the demographic within those is huge. It's a full spectrum of society. So if you do want to target the high end, it might only be 5% people of the sum, but it's not to say that you shouldn't be in that. And again, I would always say, look at who else has appeared in there. If you were looking at press reviews from tabloids, newspapers, there'd be serious 5-star real high-end properties in there, and they're in there for a reason. It's because it puts you in front of a really broad audience. Okay, so moving on to the creative thinking then. So this is where we fashion the news hook, and this is what we love doing at Pic PR, which we pretty much do on a daily basis, is just trying to get that extra thinking behind it and expand on what we're looking to do. And if natural news isn't happening, this is where this really comes into play. And there's different forms of that. And how do you come up with ideas? So the top one there is reactive. So that's checking the news every day. We'll look in the newspapers, whether that's, again, national news or regional news applicable to our hotel clients and other clients, and see if there's something in there that we think we can spin or hook off and give that relevant news hook. Again, I have some examples of that in a moment. And another thing is trends. If there's things that are regularly occurring in the news and the media across social media, you can jump on those. If there's broader trends, you can actually hook off that as well. So keep an eye on that. And then brainstorms. This is, again, something we're very big on at Pic PR, is we're lucky to have a team of 30. So we can call on lots of backgrounds and different heads, whether it's different genders, different ages, different ethnicities and backgrounds and so on. So we can just bounce ideas off each other and find sort of a nugget. I like to call them nuggets of inspiration, where there's something that stands out and you think, you know what, there's something in that, we can expand on this. And again, I will touch on those. And then the final one, obviously a fairly new development is AI. That's actually becoming a great tool to help you flesh out some ideas. And especially if you're a marketer who's in-house, who doesn't have that bigger team around you, you can bounce some ideas off AI and get some inspiration. You might ask it for 10, 7, 8 will be useless, but there could be 2 there are worth exploring, you can expand upon. So I'd say we definitely use that, and that's something we're starting to do more and more of as an agency. So going into creative tactics, so once you've got those creative ideas, what do you do? So there's a lot of value in creativity and creative ideas, and once you've hit on a decent one, expand it as much as you can. So earned thinking that's good enough for a journalist should be maximized. So if you've got to that point where it's good enough to be published through a PR piece, then it's good enough to be used elsewhere. If you've got an advert, that doesn't necessarily translate across. You could have paid for a really nice advert talking about your offering, but that's not going to be of interest to a journalist. However, something that's of interest to a journalist should be of interest for the bigger audience. So you can use that on your socials, across mailers, blogs for the website, and again, videos and imagery that all play into that. It just makes something that you can just take it and use right across the board. So then I just thought I'd go into some specific examples of how we put this into practice over the years so you can get a feel for it in action. And the first, excuse me a second, is focusing on a hotel called Stonehouse Court. So that's in Stroud in the sort of the Northern Cotswolds, and they're very big on sustainability. They've won awards for their green initiatives over the years, and that's something that they really put their stall out and like to champion and like to showcase that they take it seriously and it's very authentic. And this was a very quick reactive idea. So it's back in 2022, there was loads of flight cancellations. I think it was more of a staffing issue, but there could have been some IT glitches and so on within that. But lots of cancelled flights were happening and it was all over the news. It was a constant theme throughout that period. So we came up with the idea of the carbon saving cancellation package. So that's where disappointed travellers with the discount get a discounted rate based on the fact that by missing a flight, they're effectively saving carbon. So obviously, if you're getting a plane somewhere, it really is, I think it's about 1/3 of your annual carbon footprint really that you should be looking to spend over the year. And that just plays into something. I've lost track of where I was. So yeah, by not going on a plane, you're effectively saving the environment and saving that. So Stonehouse Court wanted to champion that as part of our creative tactics. So they would offering during midweek bookings. So I think it was 32% off because that was the equivalent of a flight to Spain. So if you're not going on holiday, if you wanted to leave the UK, you've got your holiday booked, but you can't get there because of a cancelled flight, you can go to Stonehouse, still enjoy your holiday, but at a heavily discounted rate. And within that, we also built in an extra element that depending on how far you were flying. So if you flew to Spain, you got some extra credits, and if flying to Spain was the equivalent of £7, say, at the bar that you could spend. But if you were flying to Australia or even further afield, you would get a much bigger credit. It was capped, but you would get a much bigger credit. And that was enough of an inspiration to get some great national coverage. You can see some examples on screen there. It was in the Mirror, and then that extended to regional press like Birmingham Live, Gloucestershire Live, and other local publications. Now, the benefit of that is brand awareness. You're in national media, but they also linked back to Stonehouse Court's website. So as part of it, we built a package out on the website so people could go there directly to book. And when the national media are referring to it, they're linking back to Stonehouse Court's website and saying, go here to book. So it's driving traffic, driving brand awareness, and it actually got bookings as people were taking it up. So from Stonehouse Court's perspective, that was really a quick win, but a great win in terms of what they got off the back of it. And then the next one then, so this is a Borders experience. So press stays need a news hook too. So it's easy to think that if you are a high-end hotel, you've got a fantastic offering, great amenities, great team, lovely food, that journalists just want to come and stay with you and experience it. But the problem is that applies to hundreds, if not thousands, of hotels and properties across the UK. So there's a long queue to get in that. So you really need to do something different to stand out. And really what you want to look at is where you are and what's going on in your vicinity. And just highlight your hotel as a base to experience that. So this example is a place called Bryn Talent Hall in Powys. So it's right on the border of England, Wales. There's not around it. So it's really sort of out of the way and an unexplored area, really. But it's a spectacular area with very few tourists. We pitched that as the angle to the Telegraph, and you can see on the article there, that was what they led with. So the beautiful borderland with wild mountains and hidden villages, but hardly any tourists. And that was enough for them to differentiate from other hotels and other things landing in their inbox. They think, okay, that's interesting. This is unexplored. Our readership is going to be interested in this. So they sent a journalist along for a 2-night press stay, and that was subsequently featured in print and online. And again, there is a follow link from that article to Bryn Tannant saying, go here to book if you want to explore this area. Now, the day it was published in print, Bryn Tannant, the team there, were slightly sort of disappointed in how it was when it first came out, because initially, we thought there'd be more about the hotel. They thought it'd be, we'd come along the driveway, see this imposing building, and talking about the rooms and so on. But the reality was, it didn't do that. It talked about the area. It really sold the area, but it kind of led into, if you want to experience it, stay here. Now, at first they were slightly disappointed, but that very afternoon, somebody rang up and said, I've just seen this fantastic article in the Telegraph. It looks great. Can I book a 2-week stay? So the direct benefit of that, a 2-night press stay where you've hosted a journalist, has directly resulted in a 2-week booking. And obviously there are more bookings on top of that. And going back to that follow link, so that's online. You get the print benefit, but also it's online for eternity. Anyone sort of, I say eternity, obviously for within reason. But anyone Googling that part of the world would see that article about it, and it points directly to your property. Now, another aspect within that we built in was a wild swimming retreat. So that's where we got multiple press. I think it was Grazia, Evening Standard, and some sort of prominent journalists in the health and wellness space. Sorry, influencers in the health and wellness space, and they came over for a wild swimming retreat. Now, if you approached journalists today with wild swimming has been overdone, but at the time, a couple of years ago, this was very much in vogue, and we were sort of ahead of the curve, and people were interested in doing those things and going and experience it. But it was all just another example of helping to sell the area. They got some great national coverage for Bryn Tannant. So another area of hospitality, actually, restaurants and fine dining, and if you're a hotel, you'll all have restaurants as well. And this is something called the Prithvi Cookbook. So Prithvi is a fine dining restaurant in Cheltenham, which does fantastic food. It's been going 12 years, and for years you literally couldn't get a booking. Until we started working with them, I thought that was still the case, because it was always, let's go somewhere this week. Actually, there's a multiple week waiting list to get into Prithvi, which was great for years. But actually, they came to us and said this popularity was starting to decline, particularly midweek. So they were struggling to get people coming in. It turned into an occasion restaurant. So people would go there for anniversaries, for birthdays and other celebrations, but they wanted to get people sort of more familiar with the food they're offering and to come in and drop in a bit more casual basis. So we looked at it and we thought, like, they've been going 12 years. What can we use to help maximize what they've got? And of course, they got this back catalogue of brilliant recipes and really lovely food. So we suggested building a cookbook, which they loved the idea of. And as part of that, we helped find publishers that would work for them. And we also actually helped write it. So they provide the recipes, but we wrote the content. And we launched that sort of October last year. I mean, it gave us lots of opportunities to talk to press, because we were coming up with the idea April last year. So we were able to go out with that, saying Prithvi is putting together a cookbook. But then October is when we launched a pre-sale campaign across PR and social predominantly, but we also built in things like QR codes embedded in receipts. We offered £20 Prithvi vouchers, the first 50 books sold. It really sort of generated a buzz. And in the first week of pre-sale, they sold £3,000 worth of books. Now, for a restaurant, that's a lovely extra stream of revenue that they don't normally get, but it also serves to really put them back on the radar, and they experienced an uptick in bookings across November and January, which are particularly quiet months. They tend to do well over Christmas, but November and January had direct impact there. So yeah, that's just another example of using what you've got. So if you're a hotel, you'll be always putting on new menus and new recipes. Sorry, if you're a restaurant within a hotel, you'll have new menus and so on. So it's just maximizing what you already have. And another example here then, so this Poppy Love Story. So we were with Orchardly. It's a 500-acre Somerset estate that's basically a luxury. It's an incredible venue. It's got lots going on there. I mean, there's actually 2 wedding venues. There's Elmhade Park within it. There's Orchardly is the main imposing sort of stately home. They've got a golf course and various other things, but weddings is their core focus. and they wanted an idea that would really show off their wedding offering and the best bits of the estate. Now, this idea actually came off. So during the height of lockdown, I mean, it's a hospitality audience, so you can appreciate how bad that period was. But Orchard Lee was fully shut down, obviously no weddings going on. And it was pretty much Chris, who's the owner, and his wife, Heather, just cutting around the estate. Not a lot on really, but we obviously in constant conversation with them and seeing what was happening. And they kind of talked to us about these. They've got these horses that were getting on well, and we came up with the idea of a horse wedding. So that was just gave us that opportunity to show off the estate using the medium of horses. And we sent one of our video team down, all socially distanced, following the appropriate rules, to go and capture them. And Chris, fair play, very game of him. He dressed up, he was a full celebrant. So he kind of hosted this horse wedding with Heather kind of steering the horses around. He got some really nice pictures and a video to go with it, which we sent out. And at the time, that got not just regional coverage and national coverage, that got international. It was covered in Fox News and all sorts. So it was a bit of a crazy time during COVID, but that really did explode. And they obviously loved that and referred to it a lot over the years and are keen to sort of emulate that. Now, if you go to a meeting with them, they've always got their dog with them. Poppy is a lovely sort of terrier, and it's there. And we're kind of like, oh, I tell you what, why don't we try and we did consider the idea of a horse divorce, by the way, but that didn't quite strike the vibe. So yeah, we're looking at Poppy as inspiration. And we thought actually we could really again focus on the various aspects of the estate that stand out by building this story of a lonely Poppy. So she's going, I mean, Chris has got a helicopter and all sorts, he's got Rolls Royces. But if you're a groom or, sorry, a bride and groom going in there, you can actually have these as part of your wedding day. So Chris is a very game guy and he will take you up in his helicopter if you want to. So we kind of built up these various aspects of the estate into this story of Lonely Poppy, and we put out the hunt for a prospective partner. So we're looking for a dog to come and befriend Poppy, and then obviously there's a romance element as well in the wedding. So that led into the next thing. So we actually have got the wedding on Thursday. Our video team are a bit nervous about it, dealing with dogs running around because they're going to get some dog guests and all sorts is happening. So that's a bit of a wild card, but it just adds different opportunities to get that coverage and to build up a bigger campaign. So we've got the hunt for Poppy, and this is the next stage, is actually the wedding and revealing that. And people love dogs. You see it all over socials. There's a real interest there. So that was our thinking behind that, but it just gives us that opportunity to show off the aspects of the estate and create that news hook. And then so onto our next example. So the dementia friendly hotel. So this stems from the beginning of last year, on January time, we saw an article in National Geographic that highlighted the rise in dementia tourism. So again, this is where we call upon our care background. We do quite a lot within the care sector because care homes and hotels are both trying to fill beds and they both look after people. So there's a kind of a strange sort of synergy and crossover there. And we are very much aware that, dementia cases are a bigger and bigger segment of society are living with dementia, and it's just an issue that's going to continue to grow. So we thought actually we could marry this up and merge our expertise. And there's also a genuine insight here in that Billesley Manor had, so this is a lovely hotel near Stratford-upon-Avon in Warwickshire, but they said they had an issue where a guest went wandering the night who had dementia, and member of staff found them wandering the corridors. They were able to take them back to the room, and it all worked out okay, but it just had that poignancy that they'd encountered it. And they just did say what could have gone wrong, really, if that person hadn't managed that appropriately. They could have been a disaster for them, but thankfully they did. So we thought we could build on this, put them in touch with New Age Care, who is another Warwickshire-based care provider who we worked with, and they worked together to form up a sort of a guide and advice piece on how hotels can become more dementia friendly. Team from New Age Care went to Billesley Manor, went round with the team, sort of talked about areas that they could improve to help people who are potentially living with dementia and staying with them. They might be having access to certain games that people enjoy and so on. And then they rolled this training out across the team. So now everyone at Billesley Manor has some semblance of understanding of what to do and how to react if somebody is living with dementia who comes to stay with them. So that generates some lovely local and trade press coverage, but also opened up Billesley to new markets. So there is hospitality trade press coverage, but also care trade press coverage, and they've actually seen carers booking in. So again, New Age Care will go on holidays, they'll take people away as part of it. they will go along and accompany them. And if they're looking for an option that's going to support them and make it easier, then they go to Bisley Manor. So they have seen that. So it's an entirely new market, part of a growing section of society that they're tapping into with that. And the cherry on the cake is that the Daily Telegraph and now have had a press day at a great time, and that should be public. Hopefully by the end of the webinar, it could be out, but it's literally any day now in January, that piece is being published where the Daily Telegraph have gone along to review it. So what I will also say is you don't have to reinvent the wheel to get coverage. So you can repackage what you've already got. So these are current examples. We're literally doing this at the moment, and this has been happening the last couple of weeks. So we also work with Wiltshire-based Baywood Hotel, and we helped sort of put together a parent bonding package. Now, this is something we had in the pipeline for quite a while, but we sat on it until the opportunity has come in. So at the start of the year, there was a YouGov survey that came out. That's actually something very worth signing up. If you sign up to a YouGov newsletter every day, you will get an email coming through with survey results. So that will provide you with news. So if you're a marketer, again, looking for trends and things to jump on, if you sign up to that, you will see the latest surveys from YouGov, and you think, you know, we can take that data without having to pay for it yourself. You can take that data and fashion something around it. And in this example, one of the New Year's resolutions for many people is to spend more time with family. So that was enough of a hook to say, in the back of this, Baywood are offering this parental bonding break, so you can take your children along with you to Baywood and experience their amenities. And they got a big golf offering, so that was part of the thing that was factored in. And they're sat within a really nice 2,000-acre estate, so there's lots of parklands and so on in the stately home where you can go and have a look around. So we built some package around that. And again, you can see there, Salisbury Journal have already covered it, so they have local coverage off the back of it. But this has also teed up a press day as well. So somebody from NewsQuest, there's various media houses in the UK. So you've got Reach PLC, which I say media brands rather, in the UK. Reach PLC, they own the Daily Mirror, the Daily Express, Daily Star, and lots of Reach. So again, as I mentioned earlier, Gloucestershire Live, Devon Live, Cornwall Live, these are all Reach owned publications. So if you get a Reach journalist along, there's a chance that these articles will be syndicated across dozens, if not getting into the hundreds of articles around the country. And NewsQuest is another one, a similar one, and that is where we kind of, as part of our outreach, have now arranged a press day. We're looking to try and get it lined up for February half term, because that's the perfect time for somebody who's got a child with them. So they're hopefully coming on this press day now, and that would be syndicated. So they're a travel journalist for NewsQuest. If that package is covered and reviewed, then that could be up to, they own 200 media titles basically in NewsQuest. So you could get 200 bits of press coverage. So although we'd look at national being Daily Telegraph, Times and so on, and Daily Mail, but you can read those anywhere in the UK. If you're covering off 200 local audiences or publications, you're getting a really broad audience, which is as good, if not more powerful than a national piece. And similarly, we also work with Lindith Howe, which is a Lake District hotel. So this was more of a conversational one. So they said that they were allowing cyclists who stay with them to take their bike into their bedroom, because some of these are crazily expensive, well into the tens of thousands of pounds. And obviously you don't really want to leave that sat in the roof rack in your car when the bike's potentially more expensive in your car, sat out in the car park. So they were getting quite a common request from people coming in. And they thought they'd just make a thing of it and say that that's fine, that anyone who brings their bike can have it in the room with them. But we thought, oh, we could play with this a bit further and create a bed for your bike package. So we really emphasized that. So we sent our video team and photography team up there to capture some quirky imagery of somebody in bed with their bike, but also sort of having a various parts of the hotel that's all feeding into this bigger package. And it was just taking something small that the hotel didn't quite recognize was significant, and putting it out there and packaging it up as something new. And that literally was just covered in the sun over the weekend. So they've, again, you can see the coverage there where they focus on that small bespoke package. And then there's hopefully regional press coverage, and again, cycling media. So again, when you're looking at the media mix, there's specific things. So there's cycling magazines. By doing something like this, you can tap into that market as well. Okay, so how does all this drive direct bookings? Obviously, that's the theme of the webinar. So how does this help you? First and foremost, it's brand awareness, so people will know about you and associate your hotel with it. So if you put something quirky that goes in the news, people will naturally just go through and see that, and you'll get your name out there, which normally it wouldn't have been. Obviously, OTAs heavily dominate the search results, and it's quite hard to stand out there. So by doing this, you are just making yourself stand out and putting yourself in front of a broader, bigger audience. So it does drive traffic as well. So if you are featured in the news, obviously online, and if they're linking back to your website, in theory, they should click and follow that, and you will see a direct uptick on the day that it's published. That's a great indicator. Online, that's kind of like, once it's first live, you're going to get most traffic, but there's almost like a long-standing link then. But again, print as well, it should, in theory, translate across. So people have read about you in the newspaper, a bit like what happened with Print Talent. People will then go online and look at your offering. Yeah, and creating links and wider brand mentions. So it's a key off-page trust indicator for SEO. So search engine optimization, that's a heavily evolving aspect of marketing. It's constantly changing. Obviously, AI is in play now and so on. But last year there was it's called the helpful content update, where Google changed what they deemed worthy of ranking. And there was also a big Google link actually, where it kind of revealed what they're looking for as part of their algorithms. And previously, links were seen as the holy grail. So if you had a link to the website, that played a real big factor in where you appear in the search results. That is still the case, but within that, there are more signals at play. So just getting mentioned in reputable publications, such as those national media we talked about, you don't actually have to have a link these days. They will take in the fact that your brand is mentioned within that and take that into effect. And it's also, when we talk about creative campaigns and going back to exploding it across your channels, say if you're putting on your social channels, Google again will take that in. So if you've got TikTok's a fairly new developing platform, if people are talking about you in TikTok, Google will pick those conversations up. So if you've got influencers staying with you and they create TikTok generated content off the back of a package that you've put together, that all plays a big part in how you appear and rank. So yeah, I'll just to end on a bit of a CTA there then. So if you want some free ideas off the back of this website, we're willing to do that. So as part of our creative process, twice a week, we basically have a session on a Tuesday and a Thursday where we put forward clients, we bounce ideas around, we pull people together from the agency. So if you're keen to get some ideas for your hotel or your brand, and you think, you know what, I want to see how this could feasibly work, drop me an email, we'll pop you into the chat, and we'll come up with something. We'll share those with you. You can take them or leave them. It's up to you. But again, yeah, just reach out. We'll pop those in and put something together. And again, just a quick nod to every week we share examples of the creative sort of campaigns and thinking that we've done in our pick of the week format. There's the web address there. But if you wanted to sign up to our newsletter, because again, we send those out on a weekly basis, then again, just drop me an email and I'll pop you in.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lloyd. That was really interesting. Although I knew some of those bits because we've been working with you for a while, it was still interesting. We have got a couple of questions actually. I'm always trying to read them and listen at the same time. But one here from Pamela says, "Hi Lloyd, great ideas on creative PR. Thank you. What about features and tips for securing coverage in them, please? What about features and tips for securing coverage in them, please?"
So
yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, in terms of what's sort of meant by features, so we would deem, so if you're looking at trade press, for instance, if you're trying to get in the caterer, you need to have some sort of level of expertise. And again, that might be somebody within your team. So it's using a team member who's got insight within that. If you have a revenue manager who's particularly insightful and offering something, you can propose that. Features by and large, I would say is, so if you're featured as a press day as a feature, really, because they're coming over to feature your hotel and talk about it, but there'll be different forms of that. There'll be roundups, and again, that just needs consistent outreach and PR activity. So if, say, a journalist is doing a roundup of the 10 best hotels in the Cotswolds, you want to be on their radar, really. So it's kind of about consistently getting your name out there. I'm not sure, does that answer it, Jane, do you think?
I think it probably does. I'm sure I'll get a little message if there's further clarification needed. Another one, is there a risk that content we share with press is deemed too promotional? How do we avoid this?
Yeah, that is one of the big risk rates. We talk about journalists being the arbiters and the gateguards. So if you go in too heavy about talking about your brand and your offering, and you just put it right in the headline, it's too heavily orientated to your brand, then they're not going to do that. You really need to lead with the news hook. So find something that is going to resonate. And if there isn't that news hook, then they won't do it. They'll just push you to their advertising department. So all publications will have an advertising department. And if you're going in too heavy, they pretty much will say that. They'll just say, look, this is too much about you. Let's steer you down here. You can feature in our newspaper and our magazine, but it's going to cost you money. Whereas from PR perspective, it's that earned thinking, going back to that, where you're just trying to get through that gate and in there off your own back and off your own merit. And it's just that creating a different sort of angle or trend or news jacking opportunity that's come up.
Right, brilliant, thank you. And I think this might be a tricky one. How do we measure success?
Again, so PR is often sort of seen as a tricky one to measure, in the fact that somebody may open a newspaper, read about something you got going at your hotel, it's not quite right for them, they're not looking to book their holiday at this time, and a few months down the line, they have it in their head, and that's when they visit your website and make that booking. So it can be quite hard to attribute that sometimes. However, so going back to the previous, if it's driving direct traffic and you're seeing a clear uptick, then that's an indicator that people are paying attention. And of course, bookings, if people have actually gone into a quirky package that you've created and made bookings, that's great. But and I say traffic on the day of publication, but also over time. So if you have a sort of year-on-year track that of the PR campaigns and PR initiatives that you're seeing that website traffic is higher over a period of time, then that's a great indicator as well.
Brilliant. Yes, I'm sure that's true. And yeah, you can't measure awareness, can you, necessarily? So a tricky one there. And then I think one final question, just reading through, what is the most important thing to look for in a campaign?
I would say, again, it probably goes back to that news hook. That's the fundamental PR point of PR. You need to have that news hook to get you in. And without that, it's not necessary. It's not going to resonate with the journalists. It's not going to get beyond them. So talkability is something that people, if you're in, I mean, we always use it as the example, if you're sat in a pub and you're with your friends and you're talking about something of interest, does it pass muster there? So if you're not going to talk about it, if you're bored about it, then it's not going to be good enough. So you need to have something that's going to create genuine interest with people, and that would be the would you talk about this to your friends about this? Is it quirky enough to get their attention? If yes, then great. If not, then maybe rethink it. And again, it is just tapping into that wider news cycle and news hooks and so on. Have that relevance really, and make it relevant to the journalists and their audience.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. So PR isn't as easy as one might have thought. I think we've learned that today. Since we at HOSPA started working with Pic, we've enjoyed a lot more press coverage. And during the pandemic, especially, we were quoted a lot in trade press, but also in the nationals too, which was a new experience for me. I've also witnessed some of the amazing campaigns that Pic PR have done. One local to me that I just went along to a press thing where they included getting a lovely old lady onto a Harley Davidson, which was sort of fulfilling her dream. And they did some amazing things there, and that did generate a lot of press. So thank you all for listening today and for questions as well. There has just been one more come in. Oh, we just really quick answer on this one, Lloyd. How important is it for revenue and distribution to work closely with PR and marketing to ensure return on investment? Just a quick answer on that before we run out of time.
Yeah, I would say very closely, ideally. I mean, there's always the balance to strike. So if you're a revenue manager, you're looking at, you want to make money. So you want to, and from a PR is about managing reputation as well. So if you're overselling your property, pricing it too high, you're going to get some blowback. So if people come along and what you've offered in their eyes isn't worthy what you're pricing it at, then you need to always factor that in. And we've seen that in the past with marketing managers at hotels. They kind of said there is not a clash as such. You get as a revenue manager, that is what you're there to do, is drive revenue. But they would sometimes push back and say, this is too much for what we're offering. So I would say always keep that relationship close, maximize where you can. And again, the great thing about these packages, if you're coming up with a quirky PR idea, you can price it up accordingly. So you can bring various bits in that you're already doing. So these are services, and it's just putting a nicer spin on it, but there is the opportunity to mark up a little bit more and add that extra percentage that would help drive revenue even further.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Lloyd. Thank you all for listening today and for your questions. And thank you, Lloyd. Definitely some eye-opening information there shared. So thank you. I always say at the end of the webinars, please remember that the opinions presented today are from the presenter and from Lloyd and on behalf of Pic PR. If you need any formal advice, then please approach your professional advisors or come to me at HOSPA, and I'd be delighted to refer you and introduce you to Lloyd directly if I can't see his details there on the screen. I'm sure they'd be delighted to hear from you, Lloyd, and the team at Pic. Please take a look at our website for other upcoming events. There are a few going up there, and there's going to be a lot more later on this year. Also on the website, you can find recordings of all of our webinars and masterclasses. That's on hospa.org, and they're also on our YouTube channel. Today's webinar should be uploaded within the next few days, and there should also be a blog about it as well, which is great. I noticed that many of the audience today have marketing roles, so I'll make sure that we share this not only for the HOSPA members, but also for the HMA, the Hotel Marketing Association members as well. But thank you, Lloyd. Thank you all for listening, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you and goodbye.